All right, ladies and gentlemen, in this video, I'm going to go over how Desmos will help you pass your SOL test. So Desmos is a online calculator that you'll have access to when you're taking your SOL test. Desmos will be embedded in the test, so you'll be able to access it that way, and you'll not have to open up a new page or anything like that. Now, your Desmos calculator will say Desmos, and we need the Virginia Standards of Learning version. That's the version that you will use. So whenever you're not taking your SOL test and you want to have access to Desmos, you can get to it going through Clever. And when you scroll down on Clever, you'll notice that there are different Desmo calculators that you can click on. The one that you're going to be most interested in is the scientific calculator, since that's the one you would be able to use on your SOL test. So just kind of looking at the Desmos calculator here, we're focusing only on the main section. So don't worry about the ABC or the function section. We're always going to worry about the main section. On the left, we have our keypad. We've got all the different numbers, including a decimal. We've got our 4 functions here, our operations. We've got our division, multiplication, subtraction, and addition. And we have an answer button. Here, we're going to worry about our square key. This is where you can put any number to a certain power. So if you wanted to do, instead of 5 to the 2nd power, you could do something like 5 to the 5th power. Here's your fraction key. That's going to be extremely helpful. We have square root key that we're going to be interested in. We're not going to be so interested in here. We'll have our parentheses that we could potentially use. We're not going to worry about these buttons. Our pi button is there. However, most teachers are going to ask you to use 3.14 for pi. We have these 2 bars here, which means absolute value. We have a comma, and then we also have a % of key. So those are some of the main different buttons that you have when it comes to the Desmos calculator. So I just want to kind of give you an idea of how it would work. Anytime you're using the calculator, you can use your keyboard or you can use the keypad. So showing you the keypad, if I wanted to do 7 times 3, I would literally click 7 times 3, and if you notice, your answer comes right here. Whenever you want to clear a line, all you have to do is click Clear All. Now let's say I wanted to use my actual keyboard for this, and what if I wanted to do 2 minus 1. So then I would literally hit 2 on my keyboard, which I did, and then minus, and then I would press 1 on my keyboard. And if you notice, the answer comes up right here. If you want to use other functions, you can use that. If you want to do a fraction, all you have to do is click on the fraction button. And then at this point, you can either use your keypad or you can use your actual keyboard. I technically like to use the keyboard, but it's totally up to you. And for this video, I'm actually going to show it on the keypad. Let's say we wanted to type in 4/7. So then I would literally click 4. Then I would click in the next for our denominator, and then I would press 7. So that creates 4/7. And if you notice, it already translates it to you in decimal form. If, let's say, we wanted to do a mixed number, what we could do is we could type in the number 5, or actually I would technically like to do a fraction first. So let's say we wanted to do 5/7. So I would type in 5/7, and let's say for the whole number part of it we wanted 2. You literally just click in front of it and type 2. There's different ways that you can do it. That's just the way that I technically do it. So when we do that, we have 2 and 5/7. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through some of the different questions that you will see or could potentially see on the SOL test or any type of assessment that you may take, and how Desmos can help you solve those problems. For this first problem, it says, what is the value of 6 to the 3rd power? So let's say we're trying to use our calculator for this. All we have to do is go over here and we're going to type 6, and it's raised to the 3rd power. So we're going to look over here. If you notice, this is the squared button, so this would be like 6 to the 2nd power, but we want 6 to the 3rd power. So I'm going to look over here at this button. If I click on this button, if you notice, your cursor moves up a little bit higher than the 6. And I'm going to go ahead and type 3 so that it shows 6 to the third power, that 3 being an exponent. And 6 to the third power gives us 216. So our answer for this would be 216. If we wanted to do, let's say, 6 to the 8th power, we literally could put an 8 there instead, and there's our answer. So anytime you have a number and it's being raised to something other than 2, this is the button that you're going to want to use for that. For our next question, it says, Bob is working on projects that require 4.5 yards of wood for each project. Bob has 22 yards of wood. What is the greatest number of projects Bob can complete with the wood? So for this type of problem, you have to kind of know what operation it is or operations that you're going to need to do. So looking here, it says that he's got 22 yards of wood and each project requires 4.5 yards of wood. So anytime that you have a large amount, or it could be a small amount, and you're breaking it up into equal parts, you're going to want to divide. So you're going to take all of this wood that he has and divide it into equal parts, those equal parts being 4.5. So we're going to take that 22 and divide it by 4.5. Now, instead of having to do your 22 and then you divide and all of that good stuff, I'm going to show you how you can put it on Desmos to check your answer. So what I'm going to do is, because it's 22 divided by 4.5, I'm going to type 22, and then I'm going to hit the division key. Now, if you notice, when you hit this division key, it puts a bar. This does not necessarily mean that it's going to make a fraction like when you hit this. It is meaning division, okay? It's just showing it with a bar this time. So 22 divided by, again, that's what that bar means, and then now we need to type in 4.5. So I'm going to go ahead and click this fraction bar, and I'm going to type 1/2, and then I'm going to put the whole number 4 in front of it, simply by clicking in front of it. So now we have 22 divided by 4.5. And if you notice, we get 4.88888. It goes on and on and on. Now it's saying, what's the greatest number of projects Bob can complete with the wood? Well, if you're looking, 4 is the whole number, and then he's going to have some wood left over, which we cannot create another whole project. So we can't even round this up. The most amount of projects that he could make is 4. So our answer would be 4. Now, if you had actually solved this out on paper, you would have ended up with 4 8/9. That 4 being the whole number, and then if you wanted to do 8/9, all you would have to do, I'm going to click this to get a new line right here, is do 8 divided by 9. And if you notice, you get that 0.8888889, and that's that piece right there. So that's one way that you can check your answers when you're solving, especially problems like this, where you are allowed to use a Desmos calculator. For our next application problem, it says Donnell ran 22 1/5 miles this week. Simone ran 18 2/3 miles this week. How much further did Donnell run than Simone? So with this problem, again, you have to know what operation it is that you're going to do. Because it's saying how much further, this is going to be a subtraction problem. And Donnell ran the most, and then Simone ran the least. So we're going to end up doing 22 1/5 minus 18 2/3. Now you could solve this problem by paper, no problem if you needed to. Now I'm going to show you how Desmos can be helpful when solving a problem like this. So we need to do 22 1/5 miles. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my fraction bar first, and I'm going to type 1 using my keyboard, or you could use the keypad, over 5, and I'm going to put the 22 in front since that's our whole number, 22. And then I'm going to click so that that cursor is right in between, like where the fraction bar is. That way we don't end up typing a number in the numerator or denominator with it. And I'm going to press the minus key. And then we have 18 2/3. So because there's a fraction in there, I'm going to type the fraction first. So here it is. 2/3, and our whole number was 18, so I'm going to type the 18 in front of that. So now I have 22 and 1/5 minus 18 and 2/3. And if you notice, it gives us a decimal answer. Now, all of these answer choices are not in decimal form. They are in fraction form, but we can utilize this decimal form to help us figure it out. So if you notice, our whole number here is a 3. So when I look over at our answer choices, there's only one answer choice that actually has a 3 in front, and that's answer choice C. I just want to double and triple check to make sure that this is the correct answer. So I'm a little worried about this 8/15ths part. So what I'm going to do is what I'm going to do to make sure that I do have the right answer is I'm going to go ahead and create another line. So I'm just going to press this insert button here. So now we have a new line, and I'm going to test this 8/15 to see if I get that 0.53333 going on and on. Now, I haven't told you this before, but if you wanted to, you could literally type 8 and the slash button on your keyboard, and notice how it automatically puts it in fraction form, and then you can type 15. If that's confusing to you, then you can simply do 8, I'm sorry, let me delete that. You can simply click the fraction bar and do 8/15, and you would still get the same answer. So that was just kind of like a little shortcut for you, just in case you'd prefer to do it that way. So I'm looking at this 8/15ths part, and if you notice, it does give you 0.53333 and so on. So we have our 3 whole number, like we did here in our answer, and we have the 8/15ths, which is the 0.5333. Therefore, we know we have the right answer, so the correct answer would be C for this problem. So again, you can totally write this out on paper, which I encourage you to do, but then you can also go back and check using your Desmos calculator. Okay, moving on to our next question. If you notice over here, I've still got some work done. I'm going to go ahead and click clear so that clears everything out for me. So now let's take a look at this multi-step problem. It says Tim spent $14 each week for 6 weeks. The circle graph shows how Tim spent his money on each of 5 types of items. So we have books at 10%, clothes at 35%, snacks at 15%, music at 25%, and makeup at 15%. Now it says, based on the graph, how much money was spent on books and clothes for the 6 weeks? Okay, so we're definitely going to have a lot of different things that we need to do here. First of all, when I'm looking at the problem, it says, based on the graph, how much money was spent on books and clothes. So I'm automatically going to want to look at those percentages for books and clothes. So books is 10% and clothes is 35%. So what we're going to do is we're going to combine both of those. And if you don't know what 10 plus 35% is, you can always do that over here, and I'm going to go ahead and model that for you. So we would have 10 plus 35. You do not need to hit this percent key or anything like that right now. So you notice that gives you 45. So that's 45% for, and excuse my handwriting, so that's 45% for books and clothes. But it's not asking the percentage. It wants to know how much money was spent on books and clothes for the 6 weeks. So we need to know how much money was spent altogether first. So it's saying that he spent $14 each week for 6 weeks. So instead of adding $14 plus $14 plus $14 6 times, there's a faster way that we can do this. We can simply take the $14, so I'm going to do a new line, so I'm going to do $14 times 6 weeks. So this will let me know how much total money was spent. 14 times 6 gives me 84. So, okay, so $84 was spent in that 6 weeks. So that means for 6 weeks, $84 was spent for this whole entire circle graph. But we need to only know how much 45% of $84 was utilized. 45% of 84. So this is where our percent key is going to come in handy. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new line by clicking this button right here. And I'm going to do 45%, so 45, and now I'm going to hit that percent of key. Percent. Notice how it automatically puts that of there. So 45% of $84, so let me type 84, gives us 37.8. So that is going to be our final answer. And we don't usually see money written like this, 37.8. We usually see it written in the hundreds place. So to put a placeholder here, we can put a 0. So that would be $37.80. So anytime you're trying to find a percent of a number, you can use this percent sign right here. You do have to click that first. So if you want to know what 50% is of 100, you would do 50%, and notice how it comes of 100 equals 50, which makes sense. Half of 100 is 50. So again, anytime you have problems like this where you're trying to find an amount or anything like that, you can use that percent of button, which is located right here. Okay, so now that we've moved on to a new problem, I'm going to go ahead and clear out everything. So clear and clear all. So I have a blank screen. It says, a garden is in the shape of a triangle. Harry wants to cover the garden with fertilizer. How much space will be needed for the fertilizer if the base is 12 feet and the height is 10 feet? So I'm seeing the word cover, I'm seeing the word space. So for this one, we're looking for area. Now, the beautiful thing about these types of problems is that you'll never have to memorize the formulas. They're automatically going to give them to you. The formula for area of a triangle is area equals 1/2 base times height. Okay? So now all we have to do is do our formula, plug and chug, and our answer, and then we can also check using Desmos. So I'm going to show you how to use Desmos using this, okay? So make sure you pay very close attention. Okay, so it tells us that the base is 12 feet. So what I'm going to do is using my actual keyboard, I'm going to type the letter B for base. So I'm going to type B, oops, sorry, type it over here. I'm going to type the letter B, and I'm going to press the equal sign on my keyboard, which is by the backspace button. So equals, and then in this case it says, let me get rid of this for you. It says that the base is 12 feet. So B equals, and then I'm going to write or type 12. Then I'm going to hit enter. So now this is telling Desmos calculator that, hey, anytime I see the letter B, it's going to be 12. Now we have a height. So I'm going to type in the letter H using my keyboard. Then I'm going to press the equals button. And it says that our height is 10 feet. So now I'm going to type in 10. And then I'm going to hit enter. So our base is 12 and our height is 10. Now all I'm going to do is I'm going to take this formula and I'm going to type it right in here. So the first part, and we don't need to type in area equals. We don't need to do that. So we're just going to type in this piece right here. So we have 1/2, so I'm going to use my fraction bar. I'm going to type a 1/2. Then we need to type the letter B for base. So I'm going to use my keyboard, B. And we need to type H for height. So I'm going to literally type H for height. So now our answer is 60. We literally told Desmos that the base is 12, the height is 10, and then we simply just put in the formula that you're always going to be given to you. So we have 1/2 base times height. Notice I didn't have to put times in there anywhere. If you wanted to, you could, but you don't need to. And notice that your answer is 60. And that is the correct answer. So it'd be 60 feet squared. So again, anytime you're dealing with any of the problems that deal with the formula sheet, all you have to do is type in what you want Desmos to have as your base or your height or your length or your width or your radius or your diameter, and then literally type in the formula and it will do all the work for you. So definitely use Desmos as a way to double and triple check your answers. For this next problem, I'm going to go ahead and make sure I clear out everything on my Desmos. And it says, if 30 people were surveyed, how many people like spending their money on books? So I'm looking here, and books is represented at 10%. So we need to know what 10% is of 30. So if you remember a couple questions back, we could use our percent of key. So we want to know 10%. So I'm going to type in 10 and the percent of key. 30 people because that's how many people were surveyed. So I'm going to type 30. And that gives us 3. So 3 people out of the 30 people that were surveyed like spending their money on books. And we did it just like that. Now there's other ways to solve this problem. You could have done 30 times 0.1, which is the decimal form of 10%, but just simply typing in 10% of 30 gives us 3, and that's our answer. So again, Desmos comes through another way with how. Okay, moving on to our next question. I always want to make sure I clear out my Desmos when I move on to a next question. It says find the area of the circle below. So again, you would have a formula sheet, and area of a circle is area equals pi times radius squared, not pi r2. It means pi r squared. So we're basically going to utilize Desmos to help us solve this. Now again, you could have your formula, your plug and chug, and your answer, and then you can utilize the Desmos to help you. So here it's saying find the area. For our formula for area, we need to know what the radius is. And looking over here, we got lucky. They actually gave us the radius, which was 9. So what I'm going to do over here on my Desmos calculator, R represents radius. So using my keyboard, I'm going to type the letter R, and then I'm going to press equals, and our radius equals 9 inches. So I'm going to type the number 9. And then I'm going to hit the enter button so that now it's showing radius is equal to 9. Okay, so Desmos now knows that, hey, anytime I see a R, it's going to be 9. So now we're going to go ahead and basically put in this formula on our next line. We don't need to include the A equals or area equals. So pi. Now some teachers may say go ahead and use the pi button. Some teachers want you to use 3.14 for pi. It doesn't really matter per se which one you use, but I know a lot of teachers prefer that you use 3.14. So let's go ahead and use 3.14 and leave that pi button alone. So I'm going to literally type in 3.14, 3.14, and then next to pi is radius. So you could hit times and then radius, or you could just literally put the R next to it. And that's what I'm going to do. So pi, which is 3.14, times the radius. So I'm going to put the letter R. And the radius is being squared. So there's that squared button, which is right here. So I'm going to click that squared button. And lo and behold, we have our answer, which is 254.34. So again, all we did was tell Desmos, hey Desmos, radius is equal to 9, and then we literally threw in that formula. We put 3.14 for pi, we put the R, and we put the squared, and it did it for us automatically. Just to show you that you could have put the multiplication symbol in there if you wanted to, I'm going to type in 3.14. I'm going to hit the times key, and then I'm going to type in R and squared, and notice how you still get the same exact answer. Okay, so I don't want you to be afraid to use the multiplication symbol or anything like that, because you can definitely use it. So again, here's another way that Desmos comes through to help you guys out, especially when solving those problems that require a formula sheet. Now, let's say we needed to know the diameter for this. All we would have to do is, we know that our diameter is 2 times the radius. So you could have literally typed 2 and then R for the radius, and look, our diameter is 18. So again, another way that Desmos kind of comes through for us. Now, I will say that whenever you do problems like this and you have your R equals or your base equals or whatever, and you start a new problem, you definitely want to clear it out. Otherwise, Desmos is going to still think that, hey, R is always going to be 9, which that's not the case. So again, a good clear and clear all will make sure that Desmos doesn't remember R is 9 or R is whatever number you decide for it to be. So those were some tips and tricks for you in ways that Desmos can be helpful when you're solving different problems. I hope that it will be beneficial to you. It's a great checking tool. Make sure you use Desmos and your handheld calculator if you need to.